Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel P Mukku. My name is P Mukku. Today we are going to discuss about the Khalistan. What is Khalistan? When it is started? How it is started? And so on. Introduction. The Khalistan movement is a separatist movement that seeks to create a separate Sikh homeland called Khalistan in the Punjab region of India. The movement originated in the 1970s and 1980s and is rooted in the Sikh community's history of discrimination and marginalization in India. The movement is significant because it highlights the ongoing tensions between different ethnic and religious groups in India and raises questions about the Indian government's ability to manage these tensions. To origin of Khalistan movement. The Khalistan movement has its roots in the political, economic, and social factors that led to the marginalization of the Sikh community in India. In the 1960s and 1970s, as the Indian government's policies, particularly in the areas of agriculture and industry, led to the economic dislocation of Punjab's rural population, which was predominantly Sikh. This led to resentment among the Sikh community, which felt that it was being ignored and marginalized by the Indian government. In the early 1980s, a group of Sikh militants formed the Khalistan movement and began demanding a separate Sikh state. This group was led by Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale, who was based at the Golden Temple in Amritsar, Punjab. The Indian government's attempt to remove Bhindranwale and his followers from the Golden Temple in 1984 resulted in a violent confrontation, which led to the deaths of hundreds of people, including Bhindranwale. 3. Demands and objectives of the Khalistan movement. The Khalistan movement's main demand is the creation of a separate Sikh homeland called Khalistan, which would be carved out of Punjab and some neighboring regions. The movement's leaders argue that a separate state is necessary to protect the interests of the Sikh community, which they believe has been marginalized by the Indian government. The movement's objectives include political and economic autonomy for the proposed state of Khalistan. The Khalistan movement also emphasizes the importance of Sikh religion and culture in its demands, calling for the recognition of Sikhism as a separate religion and the promotion of Sikh cultural practices. 4. Impact of the Khalistan movement. The Khalistan movement has had a significant impact on Indian politics and society. The movement has led to a rise in separatist sentiment in Punjab and other parts of India, which has challenged the Indian government's efforts to maintain national unity. The movement has also led to the loss of thousands of lives in Punjab, with both militants and civilians being killed in the violence. Internationally, the Khalistan movement has drawn attention to the issue of human rights abuses in India, particularly in the context of the treatment of minority communities. The movement has also raised concerns about the Indian government's handling of internal security and its approach to dealing with separatist movements. Indira Gandhi assassination. The assassination of Indian Prime Minister Indira Gandhi in 1984 was a major turning point in the history of the Khalistan movement. Gandhi's assassination was carried out by two of her Sikh bodyguards, who were seeking revenge for the Indian government's crackdown on Sikh militants who had taken refuge in the Golden Temple in Amritsar. Following Gandhi's assassination, there were widespread anti-Sikh riots in which thousands of Sikhs were killed. The violence was fueled by long-standing tensions between Sikhs and Hindus in India, as well as by the perception among some Hindus that all Sikhs were responsible for Gandhi's death. The assassination and the riots that followed were a major setback for the Khalistan movement, as they discredited the movement in the eyes of many Sikhs and undermined its support both within India and abroad. Many Sikh leaders condemned the assassination and called for an end to the violence. However, some Sikh militants continued to carry out violent attacks in the years that followed, including the bombing of Air India Flight 182 in 1985, which was carried out by Sikh extremists in retaliation for the Indian government's crackdown on Sikh militants. Today, while the Khalistan movement still has some support among certain segments of the Sikh community, it has largely lost its momentum and is no longer considered a significant threat to Indian national security. The Indian government has taken steps to address some of the grievances of the Sikh community, such as by granting greater autonomy to Punjab and recognizing Sikhism as a separate religion. The Khalistan movement has been marked by a series of violent revolts and clashes between militant groups and the Indian government. Here are some examples. Operation Blue Star, 1984. The Indian government launched a military operation against Sikh militants who had taken refuge inside the Golden Temple in Amritsar, Punjab. The operation resulted in a violent confrontation that lasted for several days and led to the deaths of hundreds of people, including militants, civilians, and security personnel. Assassination of Indira Gandhi, 1984. In retaliation for Operation Blue Star, two Sikh bodyguards assassinated Indian Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. The assassination led to widespread anti-Sikh riots in which thousands of Sikhs were killed. Air India Flight 182 bombing, 1985. A bomb planted by Sikh militants on Air India Flight 182 from Canada to India exploded midair, killing all 329 passengers and crew on board. The attack was in retaliation for Operation Blue Star and the anti-Sikh riots. Sikh separatist violence in Punjab, 1980s-90s. The Khalistan movement led to a surge in violent clashes between militant groups and the Indian government in Punjab. The violence included bombings, assassinations, and attacks on government buildings and security forces. Assassination of Bein Singh, 1995. Bein Singh, the Chief Minister of Punjab who was responsible for cracking down on Sikh militant groups, was assassinated by a suicide bomber. The attack was carried out by the Babbar Khalsa, a Sikh separatist group. Attacks on Indian officials abroad, 1980s-90s. Sikh militants carried out a series of attacks on Indian officials and diplomatic missions abroad, including in Canada, the UK, and Germany. These attacks were aimed at drawing international attention to the Khalistan movement. While the Khalistan movement has lost much of its momentum in recent years, some militant groups continue to carry out attacks in Punjab and other parts of India. The Indian government has maintained a strong security presence in Punjab to prevent the resurgence of the Khalistan movement and has pursued measures to address the grievances of the Sikh community. Who is funding? It is difficult to pinpoint a single source of funding for the Khalistan movement, as it is made up of multiple factions and organizations with varying levels of financial support. Some Sikh diaspora groups in countries like Canada, the United States, and the United Kingdom have been accused of providing financial and logistical support to militant groups in India. There have also been allegations of support from Pakistan, which has a long-standing rivalry with India and has been accused of backing separatist movements in the past. However, it is important to note that not all Sikh groups or individuals involved in the Khalistan movement engage in violent or extremist activities, and many Sikhs support the movement's goals of greater autonomy and recognition for their community. In recent years, the Indian government has taken steps to crack down on the funding and support for the Khalistan movement, including through measures such as freezing bank accounts and arresting individuals suspected of involvement in terrorist activities. Current status of Khalistan movement. The Khalistan movement has lost much of its momentum in recent years, largely due to the Indian government's crackdown on militant groups and the decline in support for separatist sentiment in Punjab. However, there are still some militant groups that continue to carry out attacks in Punjab and other parts of India. The Indian government continues to monitor and take action against these groups, and it maintains a strong security presence in Punjab to prevent the resurgence of the Khalistan movement. The Indian government has also pursued measures to address the grievances of the Sikh community, including the creation of a separate Sikh body to manage the affairs of Sikh shrines. Conclusion. The Khalistan movement has been a significant force in Indian politics and society, highlighting the ongoing tensions between different ethnic and religious groups in the country. While the movement has lost much of its momentum in recent years, it remains a potent symbol of the challenges faced by Ind. Thanks for watching my video. Please subscribe, share, like and comment.